breadth of different kinds of groups. Also, it's not just our River Field Studies Network regulars. We've got a bunch of folks that have joined in, and so welcome to all of you who this is your first River Field Studies Network webinar. Today, we are excited to host Dr. Craig Anderson. Dr. Craig Anderson is an assistant professor of marketing at HEC in Paris. So he's in Paris this morning, or this afternoon rather, for him. But he trained in California. He got his PhD at UC Berkeley in social psychology. And then he did some postdoctoral work. Actually, I don't know that we've talked about this. When were you at WashU?
2019 through 2023. Okay,
yeah. So I was there before, but I also postdoced at WashU. I was wondering if we were there at the same time in St. Louis. Yeah. Not in the business school where you were, but in their biology program. And has since then taken his professorship in Paris. And his research is this is definitely a new topic for us. Usually we have sort of STEM folks or outdoor ed or river safety kinds of topics. This is certainly the first time we've had a social psychologist join us, and we're really excited to broaden our knowledge in that way. His research focused on affective science, how people's emotion help and their attempts to regulate their emotions help influences their choices and their behaviors and so forth. But in particular, we invited him today because of his long interest in the emotion of awe, and in particular, how it's related to people's curiosity, and then stemming from that, maybe their interest in particular kinds of academic careers or academic outcomes as we're thinking about training students and sort of turning them on to careers in science or whatever brought you to this webinar today. And I think for those of us who are engaged in field education, at some level, we think there's something special about getting students out in the field, and that there's something about that can create something that turns them on to careers in science and conservation and stewardship. And many of us can think about personal experiences that we had that pointed us in that direction in our own careers. But sometimes we don't necessarily know what that secret sauce is. Maybe we haven't actually dissected like what is it about that field experience that led us to these career choices that we've made. But it's possible that maybe there was some awe that might have been in that for some of us. And so this is a chance for us to have an expert on the topic, share scholarship, so research about this. This is, how do people study awe? And to brainstorm with us a little bit about, if we were to think about awe as part of that secret sauce that's in a field class, like how could we be more intentional about it, not just let it happen accidentally? What if we were to even think about designing one of our outcomes to be a sensation of awe? How would you assess that? What would that look like? What would be the implications if we did that? And so I think that's a really fun way to start the day, thinking about how to create awe for our students. And so Craig has said that he's got about 25 slides that he's going to share with us in a presentation mode. He said that in the business world, people jump in with questions, so that's totally fine. People need to feel free to interject with questions. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat box too, and so if you feel more comfortable like sliding something into the chat, I can also be kind of the toss that one out to Dr. Anderson. But then hopefully with the 25 slides, he said that he would welcome some time for us to say, well, hey, I teach in this setting, how could, what about this, so he's happy to brainstorm with us as well at the end. And so with that, I think I'm recording. Am I recording? Yes, I am recording. And I will turn it over to Dr. Anderson. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm excited.
All right, James, thanks for the lovely introduction. And are we looking to go till the end of the hour? Is that our goal?
Yeah, the top of the hour is our goal.
Okay, very good. Well, great. It's a pleasure to be with all of you here today. And I'll reiterate, in business schools, people jump in with questions right away, right? It's a sign of interest. So please don't hesitate to unmute, drop it in the chat, however you feel comfortable. And if you're watching the recording, reach out over email if you'd like. I always like talking about awe, helping people design studies to measure awe in their classrooms. That's a fun way I like to apply the research that I do. All right. So today's talk, I'm going to start with some guiding questions that it's my hope after we're done today, you'll feel slightly better equipped to answer. So first, what is awe? Why is incorporating awe into the classroom desirable? And then how can course content be made more awe-inspiring? So to help answer these questions, here's a roadmap for what I'll be talking about. First, I'm going to introduce myself and a little bit of river research that I've done. I'm going to introduce the science of awe and kind of give you a taste of what we know about so far. I'm going to focus in on what we know about how awe promotes curiosity. That's very relevant to what we do in our classrooms, right? We want our students to be curious. And then finally, I'll give you some practical examples of how to make things more awe-inspiring. So quickly about me first. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So right here in the pink, that's Mountain Time Zone. Not a lot of rivers there, but things we are notable for. Breaking Bad was filmed there, and it takes place there. And also chili, okay? Spicy food. We have red chili, we have green chili. We're very passionate about that. And spicy food is going to be relevant later in this talk, as you'll see. Growing up, I spent a lot of time in the outdoors. People hear desert and they think it's boring. The desert in New Mexico is beautiful. During the day, it looks like this. Sparsely populated, so the night sky, I feel, is very awe-inspiring. So when it came time for me to choose to go to grad school, I decided to work with Dacher Keltner. That's this guy right here. You're going to see his name come up a lot in the literature that I cite. He was really the first person to systematically study the emotion of awe. And I decided I want to be on board that. So I got my PhD in psychology at UC Berkeley. And then after that, transitioned to business schools, and I currently work at HEC or HEC Paris as a professor, assistant professor of marketing. Now, I have done some river research, not like the river research you do, or at least my limited understanding of that. So as a grad student, when we were first starting to study the emotion of awe in a systematic way, awe in nature, right? That seems like an obvious association. So we studied youth from underserved communities and also military veterans, and how taking them whitewater rafting and experiencing the awe that that entails helps them in their well-being and coping with PTSD symptoms. So two papers came out of that. One is that awe might be one active ingredient that helps us explain why being in nature is good for us, and also especially at-risk populations. And the second is more kind of about the nature of emotions, right? We found that people's subjective experience correlated with their expressions of emotions in the face and the voice, and also what was going on in their body. So we also measured the hormone cortisol here. So I've done a little bit of river research myself. More recently, I've had the opportunity to do a follow-up study of sorts. So based on the whitewater rafting work, National Geographic approached me and said, hey, we're doing a documentary with veterans. We're taking them to the Arctic Circle to see the Northern Lights. And we want to see if this trip is healing for them. Will you use kind of your scientific approach and help us understand the science behind it? So if you're interested in learning more, but you don't feel like reading another paper, This is a quick 45-minute documentary that you can find on Hulu or Disney Plus that kind of nicely sums up my approach and also demonstrates, the power of awe for healing, especially for those who most need it, like military veterans. All right, that's enough about me. Let's talk about awe. Now, one thing that I didn't expect when I moved to Europe, when I would tell people I study awe, is that the reaction was, oh, with you Americans, everything is awesome all the time. Like, what does it mean, really? And it's true. In English and in the US, I think we overuse the word awesome. So it's worth thinking precisely and scientifically about its definition. And that is an emotion that we feel in the presence of things that are perceptually vast, that challenge our understanding of the world. So that comes from kind of the first theoretical paper that Dacher Keltner, my PhD supervisor, wrote with Jonathan Haidt back in 2003. That's a worthwhile read. Recently, Dacher came out with a popular science book as well. That's really nice. So that came out in 2023. Both of those, if you're interested in learning more about awe, would be a decent starting place. Now, the two things I've underlined here, so vastness and challenging our understanding, in emotion research, we call those appraisals, okay? What do I mean by appraisals? Appraisals are evaluations or interpretations of a situation that determine our emotional response to it, okay? Appraisals lead to emotions. And I'm going to give you a non-awe example to show you what I'm thinking about. So imagine that we're a school-aged kid and the bully demands our lunch money, right? The first appraisal, an automatic one, is this relevant to me or not? The bully's trying to take my money, definitely relevant to me, definitely an unpleasant experience. But this next appraisal is where it starts to get interesting, okay? Because how we appraise our coping potential in this situation will dictate our emotional response. If our coping potential is low, right, the bully is much bigger than us, our emotion is probably going to be sadness, right? The bully's going to take our money. There's nothing that we can do about it. But if we appraise our coping potential as high, right, we're bigger than the bully, or he's a scrawny guy like this, instead, our emotional response might be anger. Okay, we're activated, we're ready to fight back. We're not going to let the bully take our money. Yeah, James.
I just wanted to jump in. One of our participants said that they're not seeing slides. So I am still seeing slides, but I didn't want to charge too far ahead if many people were having issues seeing the slides. So it's advancing normally for me, but I'm wondering, is there anybody else that's having an issue with the slides? I see them, says Emma.
I'd have that participant go to the left of the recording and to the view and click that view and say, like, the view might be needing to be changed to side by side or something.
Yeah. So far, it looks like, Jamie, it looks like it might be on your end. Because the few folks that I've seen, Shaylee and Kathy, have chimed in, and Meredith, and they're all saying they're seeing them. Sarah, you're seeing them? It's
That
working for
tip
you?
solved my problem. Sorry, it was me.
Okay, great. All right, cool. Moving
All
on.
right.
Back to you, Craig.
All right, thank you. So the point here is that it's impossible to make a list, right, of all the things that everyone will find awe-inspiring, right? Because people have different tastes, people respond differently. But if people have the appraisals of vastness and need for accommodation, they should be feeling awe towards the situation. Okay, so these two appraisals of awe are central to the definition of it. They define this emotion. Now, what do we mean by vastness and need for accommodation? Here, vastness means anything that's experienced as outside our self's ordinary level of experience or frame of reference. Now, just looking at the word, right, people's lay reaction is, oh, vastness means big, right, physically large. And that is partially true, right? And the literature so far tends to use physically large things to elicit awe in psychology experiments. So the Grand Canyon, big trees, wild rivers, outer space, these are all things that are big. But what the findings that I'm going to show you later today hinge on is that there are many possible dimensions of vastness, not just physical vastness. And we're going to leave it there for now. Now, the second one we called need for accommodation. All right, it challenges our understanding. This vast thing that we're perceiving doesn't fit easily into our knowledge structures. Okay, so we have to accommodate it by moving around our mental schemas to accommodate this new information. Now, to quickly kind of sketch out why we need both of these appraisals to get to awe, we have this handy dandy grid here. Okay, we have vastness and no vastness, need for accommodation and no need for accommodation. What's that?
It's our awe rubric.
That's right. So here, neither appraisals, probably not relevant to awe. We're going to think about this one first, okay? We perceive vastness, but there's no need for accommodation. And a great example of this is the Eiffel Tower, right? Physically big. If you're standing at the foot of it, there's no denying that. But imagine that you are an employee, right? You're taking tickets at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. You see it every day. You know that it's vast. You see that it's vast, but there's no need to accommodate that information, right? You see it every day. It's part of your daily milieu. So your emotional reaction might be boredom, right? This is ennui from the latest Inside Out movie. Perfect sort of encapsulation of, you know, the French employee that is not super thrilled by their job. Okay, so vastness, no need for accommodation. Down here we have need for accommodation, but no vastness. And a good example of this might be a flavor of potato chip that we've never seen before, right? If we come across cappuccino flavored Lay's, we have to accommodate that new information, right? Cappuccino flavor wasn't in our mental schema of potential flavors before, but this is not vast, right? That's not vast, and therefore maybe we feel mild surprise, but not awe, because there's not that element of vastness. So according to this theory, at least, you need both of these appraisals here to lead to awe. Any questions about these two appraisals? Because it's going to come up later in the studies that I'll show you.
So it definitely has to be from the perspective of the individual, because like I might go to the Eiffel Tower and be very impressed. I might feel awe, even if the person who's routinely there would not.
That's right. And that's why emotion scientists came up with appraisals in the first place, right? Because you can't make a list of something that will be awe-inspiring to everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone will have their own unique perspectives and interpretations of situations. And those appraisals are what predicts the emotion that they feel. Many Parisians look at this and go, ugh, it's so ugly, right? Very different emotional response from an American who's seen Emily in Paris, right? They're going to Paris for the first time. So appraisals help us account for this wide variability in emotional responses that people have, even to the exact same stimuli.
Yeah,
all
Emma
right.
had a chat there. She says this, oh, I saw it flashed away.
Yeah.
So that really helps. That chart helped her understand her response to the Grand Canyon. I didn't feel as much awe as I expected, and that confused me at first. Now that I reflect on what you just said, maybe it's because the time I visited, I had already seen many gorgeous national parks. So it had already been moved into maybe that habituation zone or something. So
That's right. So
then Jamie
definitely
has,
probably
right.
perceive that vastness, but didn't need to accommodate it. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And then Jamie is going to be priming the pump. A question I will have later is, does awe decrease with time with the same, does awe decrease with time with the same exposure? So did that French employee initially feel awe, but then
Yeah, that's a great question. So the short answer is yes. So habituation, right? Hedonic adaptation is another name for it, is one of the most robust and reliable effects in nature, in organisms, period, right? Like even single-celled organisms habituate to stimulate. So that happens with everything. I will say a couple things about awe. First of all, it is still possible to feel awe. Like if it was true that we habituate to awe throughout our lifetime, we would expect that older people don't feel as much. But there is studies coming out of UC San Francisco showing that for older people, going on walks with an eye for things that might be awe-inspiring might be a really great way for them to boost their well-being. So there's a certain mindset, kind of a mindfulness, savoring component where you can maybe notice the smaller things, and that can bring you awe, even if you've seen it all before. Secondly, work that I'm doing with my colleagues here in Europe show that when things are awe-inspiring, the trajectory of our habituation is actually more shallow. So we habituate more slowly to things that are awe-inspiring. So that seems to be something special about things that are awesome. It takes us longer to get used to them. So that really great question there. On this slide, I just want to give you like a 10,000 foot view of the awe literature as it stands today. And the way I kind of think about it is that awe has been associated with three kind of different downstream consequences, okay? People have been very interested in how do people behave when they feel awe-inspired. And the first kind of branch of literature has to do with how awe promotes pro-social behavior. When we see things that are vast that we don't fully understand, right? We feel smaller, like our self feels smaller. That could be physical, or it could just be, admitting that my knowledge isn't so great, right? There's different ways to feel small. So the literature shows that when people are feeling awe, they behave more pro-socially. They help other people who are in need. They're more likely to share their own resources. And work that I have helped with show that people behave with more humility after they've been exposed to something awe-inspiring. And in the marketing literature, this is taking shape in a stream of research looking at how awe can make people choose more sustainable behaviors, right? Things that probably we're all sympathetic to here in this Zoom meeting. The second arm is well-being. I've already talked about how being in nature can help people like youth from underserved communities and military veterans heal from post-traumatic stress. Other work shows that when we see things that are awe-inspiring and vast, that makes kind of our daily stressors, right? The things that we're worried about, the things that really grate on our nerves, those things also feel smaller and like they're less of a big deal. So that's another way that awe can sort of boost our well-being at least with regards to kind of the daily grind. And the third sort of branch of this literature, most relevant to what we're talking about today, is how awe promotes curiosity, right? We're talking about getting people involved in STEM topics, right? More curious in the classroom. And that's what I'm going to be drilling down further on the next few slides. Specifically with work on how awe is related to curiosity. So this is work that I myself have published in the Journal of Personality. The theory is pretty straightforward, okay? So we build off a theory of curiosity by George Lowenstein. He's a famous psychologist. That curiosity is elicited by gaps in information, okay? Given that awesome stimuli are by definition vast gaps in information, right? Remember those appraisals of vastness and accommodation.
About the a fellow who
Hey,
is
Lisa,
in
could you
for the
mute
River
yourself?
Studies
Lisa, could you mute
Network.
yourself, please?
He's
Am I getting a question?
No, she was talking on the phone. I'm sorry.
Okay. So given that awesome things are by definition vast gaps in information, awe should be uniquely related to curiosity above and beyond even other positive emotions. And then curiosity in turn should be related to academic outcomes. So in this study, it's all at the personality level or the trait level, as we say. So it's possible to measure how awe-prone people are, and also how curious they are by nature, and see if those things relate to each other. Now, we went beyond just people reporting on themselves because there's potential biases there. In the second study, we had people report on their friend's personality. Okay, so peer reports confirming this pattern. And then we also brought in some high school adolescents to examine the effects of awe and curiosity on academic outcomes here. All right. So the predictor here, right, that instrument that measures different positive emotion dispositions, or in other words, different personalities related to positive emotions. Our outcome is curiosity. So this is the dispositional positive emotion scale here, and this is the curiosity and exploration inventory. And perhaps not surprisingly, the more awe-prone people were, the more curious that they were. All right, maybe that's not super convincing right off the bat. One might argue that, hey, all positive emotions are probably related to curiosity. So when we put the 6 other positive emotions into the model, the only other one that was significant was pride. And furthermore, the effect size of awe is much bigger. It's significantly larger, okay? So awe had almost an effect 2 times larger than pride, supporting this idea that awe is an emotion that's uniquely related to curiosity. And this pattern here was replicated in that peer report, okay? So it's not just self-presentation bias of people reporting on themselves. This is something that other people seem to pick up on as well. And then when we looked at those high school age students, we again see a strong relationship between awe and curiosity that was unique to awe, and curiosity in turn was strongly related to important academic outcomes. So things like work ethic and behavioral engagement and academic self-efficacy, all of these showed strong positive effects with curiosity. So I'll take a sip of my water here. Are there any questions about this study?
Yeah, I'd like to take the opportunity while you're paused to think about the audience again. The people that you studied in this, what age group are they? And is this, I think you said Yeah, are these college-age students too? I can't remember.
Yeah, I didn't say, but that's important to think about, right? A lot of psychology research rightfully is criticized for, just recruiting college students and then trying to generalize that broadly. In this, the study one, this was a more representative sample from online platforms, okay? Amazon Mechanical Turk, people sort of completing studies for monetary payment. So still not a totally representative sample, but much better than just college students. Study two was college students reporting on their friends, and this was a high school in the Midwest of a racially diverse high school. So overall, kind of compared to your typical psychology study, I'm much more confident about the generalizability of this than other psychology studies. Now, they're all Americans, right? So there could be cultural angles that this doesn't speak to.
Thank you.
All right. So this is work that I have done. On this slide, I'm going to just briefly describe other relevant work that maybe if you're interested, you can look up yourself. So this is a nice theoretical piece on how awe might have helped our species as we've developed in an evolutionary sense. I have been also involved in work looking at how awe promotes creativity. So creativity is something else we like to encourage in the classroom. The thing that makes us feel awe, right? If it's art, that makes us more curious about art. If it's science, that makes us more curious about science, right? So that's what this means about stimulus-specific curiosity. And then finally, the educational literature is starting to catch on to this. This is kind of a more descriptive study, some interviews done with elementary school teachers. I think most of the people are on board with the idea that it's important to elicit awe, but more of them are claiming that it's hard to do that. And this number seems a little bit low, right? I even think that it's hard to elicit awe. Let's go ahead and move forward. Still got 20 minutes, we're okay. So this leads us to kind of that practical thing that I promised, right? How do we make things more awe-inspiring? And to begin answering this, we'll come back to the two appraisals of awe, right? If we want to make something more inspiring, we should try to boost one of these things, right? Maybe both. Now, most people seem to assume that to make something awe-inspiring, it has to be totally novel, right? And I see this in the marketing professionals that I survey. Almost 70% say to make people feel awe, you need to show them something that they've never seen before. Now, that's probably effective, but right, if you're talking about products and brands or students in your classroom over 16 weeks, right? It's hard to show them something they've never seen before every single time. I don't think that focusing on need for accommodation is going to be sustainable. My work instead focuses on vastness as a more tractable, sustainable way to make things more awe-inspiring. So I'm just going to briefly kind of spotlight work that's coming out of this marketing related projects on how to make things more awe-inspiring, right? Things can't be physically vast, so there has to be other dimensions of vastness that you can sort of highlight or make salient. So to prepare us for this, I'm going to show you the definition of vastness again. Most people see vastness and automatically think physical size. But remember, it's about taking us outside our ordinary level of experience or our frame of reference. Any way that we experience our ordinary life is a way that we can go outside of that. And so in my work, I find that manipulating things like the age of objects, potency of medicine, skill, social power, sight, motion and time, conceptual vastness, and indeed spiciness of hot sauce can elicit vastness and make things more awe-inspiring. Okay, so on the next few slides, I'm going to show you concrete examples of ways that I've highlighted dimensions of vastness or manipulated it and made those things more awe-inspiring. So first, we have a table, right? Vastness of age. This is pretty straightforward, right? We go to a museum, we see something that's super old, that takes us outside of our usual frame of reference, right? And it's more awe-inspiring because of that. It's pretty straightforward. A table that's 2.5 centuries old is more awe-inspiring than a table that's 2.5 years old. Pretty straightforward. I also did this with the potency of medicine, okay? Showing people this picture here and saying, hey, that's enough of this drug to either treat one person or 5,000 people. And I'm not making this potency up, okay? This is actually the potency of morphine, right? And then the newest synthetic forms of opioids that we've developed, okay? They are that powerful in reality. And that's kind of crazy, right? Treating 5,000 people with that little pile of medicine, that's potency well beyond our typical frame of reference. I've also done this with products, okay? So calling people's attention to the fact that these binoculars can help you see the 4 largest moons of Jupiter. That's true. You're not going to see them super well, especially if you don't have a tripod, but we don't go into those details. But it's true, right? This is extending their sight. They're seeing things that they usually can't see. That's a form of vastness. Here we have the example of a camera, okay? With the shutter speed of 1/4000th of a second, pretty much standard, right? In entry level and kind of medium level DSLRs, you can capture a hummingbird's wings in flight without motion blur, right? That's motion that we typically can't see. That's a form of vastness. And then finally, I promised you we'd get to, the spicy sauce once again. A real product, once again, 675,000 Scoville units. In other words, in this 5-ounce bottle here, you have equivalent spiciness to 5 gallons of Tabasco sauce. All right, I'm seeing some facial reactions in the audience that remind me of the prototypical awe expression, right? That is a level of spiciness that is beyond, I would assume, is most of our typical frame of reference, right? That's awe-inspiring spiciness.
And yet it's only a 4 on a scale of 5.
Oh, I mean, that's the other crazy thing. The spiciest pepper that they just developed a few years ago, 2.5 million Scoville units. So we're not even topping out the scale here. All right, so I showed you 5 different ways or examples of non-physical, non-size related vastness that elicits awe. I'm not sure what stats people typically use, but here they are for what it's worth. These differences are highly statistically significant. And then here we have effect sizes of those effects, okay? So in all of these studies, the high vastness condition elicited more awe than the low vastness condition. And a detail I didn't bring up, when we control for things like positive emotion, generally speaking, right? Whether or not the product seems high quality or scarce or beautiful, controlling for all those things, we still get an effect of vastness on awe. So that at least seems to bear out this theory that, vastness is an appraisal that leads to awe.
I have a question from the chat that I'll maybe interject real quick here.
Sure.
Two-part question. Do you think people's prior mindsets also set them up for awe? For example, if you are open to being inspired, you might be more susceptible to awe than if you are closed-minded about feeling inspired. Part two, do you think that people need to develop this mindset with experiences when they are young children?
Yeah, so I would say the intuition is right. So this idea of openness, that is a personality trait that we can also measure. And it's one of the things that I included in that study that I talked about, right? One of the largest effects that we already knew of is that open people feel more awe. So it's true, being more open, you're going to experience more awe. But kind of even controlling for that, there was still unique variance or predictive power of awe and curiosity. So even people who are not highly open, don't give up on them. Awe can still make them more curious. What was the second part to that question?
Does that openness mindset need to be cultivated when they are young children?
I mean, it certainly helps. I mean, looking at, people who have had good schools versus bad school experiences in the sample that I collected. I mean, there was openness there that I think it was possible to see. But I mean, it's just as powerful to see the effect of awe on kids who weren't open, right? We had literally kids, and there's one in particular that I'm thinking of, who went to juvie, right? Who had been in jail, went on these whitewater rafting trips, and then he decided, this is what I want to do. So he trained as a guide, and now he is taking other kids who was in his situation on these trips. So I think that's one of the really interesting things is awe, this kind of feeling of vastness. It can change kind of our perspective about ourselves, not just, in whitewater rafting, but in the classroom as well, I think. That's why I'm talking to you all today. Kids, for some reason, sometimes assume, oh, I'm not a science person, I'm not a math person. But maybe that's because it was never taught to them in an awe-inspiring way. So that's kind of my hope for this literature and for this topic as it applies, to STEM education. Thank you for the question. I can talk at length about that. Okay, this is really, I think, my last slide. So how, therefore, do we leverage awe in science learning? Kind of like just what I've shown you. I wouldn't tell you, hey, you have to show them something they've never seen before every single class. I think a more sustainable way, a more tractable way is to find vastness, right? Find something that takes them out of their frame of reference that they're used to. And that is an easier way to make them feel awe. A second way that I haven't done any research on this, but it's kind of on the back burner, is through effective storytelling and narrative transportation, right? When we are kind of enthralled in a good story, transportation is what happens when we sort of are taken out of where we are in the world, right? Where our location is, what our situation is. Good stories transport us somewhere else. And this is a topic that people who are interested in storytelling have studied at length. But this reminds me of vastness, right? Taking us out of our ordinary frame of reference and stories are another way to do this. So I think telling stories in an effective way, getting people to narratively transport could be another way to kind of elicit vastness and therefore awe in the classroom. All right. And that's all the slides that I prepared for you. So I'm happy to field more questions. My email address is down here. So if we don't get a chance to talk today, please don't hesitate to drop me a line. I'm always interested in helping people study awe or think about awe and how it can be used in the classroom. So I appreciate you having me out today.
Thank you so much, Craig. We do have there are a couple questions been stockpiling. So Jamie, you had a question that you wanted to bring up. Maybe we can start off with yours. Yeah.
I think many of us on the Zoom, would love to see increased work ethic, behavioral engagement, and academic self-efficacy, and curiosity in our students. And so we're like, ooh, I can take them rafting, and boom. And so my question really is, and this goes back to the TED Talk of yours, James shared, where I think you looked at a dopamine receptivity gene as well. So my question is, are people who are naturally receptive to awe, then curious, then exhibit these things, or can you elicit an increase in these things via quote unquote awesome activities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really it kind of gets to this core debate in psychology of nature versus nurture, right? Obviously genes like the DRD4 genetically determined. But I think generally speaking, and this is just a guesstimate, like the extent that kind of emotions are genetically sort of predisposed, maybe 50–60%. And part of that estimate comes from like the clinical psychology literature. So there's still a lot of variability, right? Even if people don't have that gene, that's not reason to give up hope on the power of awe, right? Our species evolved emotions to help us cope with threats and opportunities that we come across. So really the effect of this particular gene was really relatively small. The people without it, it's not that they weren't feeling awe, it's just that they were feeling a little bit less. So I would not make any strong claims that there are people out there who, because of their genes, don't feel awe at all.
Great. Kathy, you have indicated in the chat that you have a question. Would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. I work at a research station, and some of this is very specific because I'm going to have 10 interns this summer, and I want to start exploring some of this with. And one is some of the research I've read where they literally, the top 10 awe-inspiring, nature's only 3, and community is 2. And I don't know if you can speak to this, but this is really important to me in my career. And I'm going to use an example. I study birds, and I've been doing it for 30 or 40 years. Yet I am very uncomfortable around birders because I am always afraid I am going to misidentify a bird. And it has actually kept me from being a birder. And there's only, maybe I just have extreme imposter syndrome, but I find that with students, they're afraid. If they're around people who are expert birders, they're afraid, and that can dampen awe. And it's very important to me to create that community. And I just think that's a really big part of the whole research in awe, and also that we in academia create that for our students. And I just didn't know if you had any insights.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, that's a really great point. So the people who are doing the teaching, right? I mean, the best teachers I've had in my life are the ones who find awe in their topic. And the research that I've done shows that awe promotes humility, right? And all the teachers I'm thinking of are so humble, like this kind of like, when you get a PhD, now you know how much you don't know. So kind of being able to impart how cool and awe-inspiring these topics are, and that it's okay to be wrong and not know everything. I mean, a lot of that has to be modeled by instructors, right? So that's really important, because not doing something because you're afraid of looking foolish or being wrong. I mean, that's a shame. You're going to miss out on learning opportunities. And my wife is an educational psychologist, which she's the expert on, but she frames it, at least for her daughters, as, making mistakes are learning opportunities, right? So I hope that's a little insight there. But I mean, awe should make people more humble, and intellectual humility is also, I didn't mention the paper, but that's another effect that the literature has found.
Thank you.
If I can jump on to Kathy's question, I think she was also, if I understood her correctly, like wondering if maybe community is an even more effective way of eliciting awe. Was that I heard that in your question? Yeah, that
I think they go together.
Nature's great, but actually starting with community, because you were saying that community was number 2 and nature was number 3 in the study you read.
Yeah, and moral courage is number 1.
What was it? What was number 1?
Moral courage.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. That's
Right.
that's a glove thrown down right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the community is super important part of it.
Yes. So in that book that I mentioned that Dacher Keltner wrote, he identifies what he calls the 8 pillars of awe. I'm getting that wrong, but that is based on thousands of narratives of awe. So we just ask people, hey, tell us about a time you experienced awe from 25 countries around the world, just to give us a sense of what makes people feel awe. It turns out that the strong link between nature and awe is kind of a North American thing. Okay, most people saying nature first, that comes from North America. Feeling like you're a part of a community absolutely is another source of awe, right? So you feel like, remember, it's not just yourself anymore. It's breaking us out of our usual frame of reference. Like, our sense of self and belonging is expanded into this group of people. So we see exactly this, right? In social movements, right? Kind of a blend between kind of moral courage and social community. I mean, sports is another example. So yes, absolutely. Kind of being folded into a collective is a very strong way to experience awe as well, because kind of our usual way of thinking of just myself in a personal frame of reference is expanded, right? That's where the vastness is coming out.
And that makes me think of, like, we have some participants who are in this NSF Belonging in Field Studies group. And so coming back to that secret sauce of field studies, nature plus belonging, maybe you're hitting on 2 of the 3, of big elicitors of that sense of awe, potentially. One last question, if I may, so I don't want to distract. And then this is from Danielle. She asks, is there much support for the idea of awe transfer? Meaning that if I play awesome music or show an awesome image or an amazing image at the start of my lecture, and it triggers awe in some of the students, that then subsequently in that class, they're going to listen better to an unrelated lecture.
Yeah, that's a great question. The short answer is I don't know. I personally, at least with the students here, I find that playing music before class actually makes them more distracted. That's just anecdotal. So a lot of the research that the emotion literature does is what's called incidental emotion, right? We make them feel awe with something, and then our measure of curiosity is something unrelated, right? So we do find that it's the case that if we show them an awesome video and then have them read a magazine article, that's just a random example, so unrelated to the video, that they show more curiosity. So that's possible. But one of the studies I showed you on that quick slide with four studies was that the effect is more powerful towards the thing that caused us to feel awe in the first place, right? If I showed an awesome video of art, the curiosity that people report afterwards, they're more interested in learning more about art and not science. And the same is true if we flip it. If science was awesome, they want to learn more about science. They don't want to learn more about art. And I don't think it's been systematically studied. I mean, it would be great if the answer was yes, right? We can do something awesome at the beginning of class, and then everyone would pay attention better. I don't think that work has been done yet.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Anderson, for a really thought-provoking presentation. Lots of really interesting questions. We really appreciate you taking time to share your work with us today. And I know I'll be going forward from today thinking more about how to integrate awe into the courses that I teach, and I'm sure many of us will be. Thank you all for joining us. As if you didn't get your question answered today, because there are still a couple of chat questions that we didn't get to, Dr. Anderson has shared his email here and has welcomed you to reach out to him following up. So round of virtual applause for Dr. Anderson. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all, and we'll see you with our next webinar.
All right, thanks everybody. It's been a real pleasure.
That was great. Thank you so much, Craig. I really do think I hadn't put the Kathy's question. I thought was really great because it made me think about this other group that I've been involved in as well, where like is the secret sauce awe, kind of that sense of building community through field courses, which is sometimes something that can be done, but it also field courses can kind of also be kind of tipping on the edge there. Sometimes field courses can be very damaging. They're non-traditional, learning spaces, and there are lots of field settings that have been very destructive when community isn't fostered. But on the other hand, it can also be a great place for building community. But then if you're doing that in an outdoor setting and sort of trying to broaden their sense of the vastness of nature, for example, we might actually, it might be awe, but maybe we're actually coming at awe through a few different channels, not just nature, but maybe also community. So that was an interesting thing for me to think about.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I mean, there's evidence that awe helps build communities. I mean, I didn't have a chance to talk about it, but awe makes people more interested in other cultures, for example, cultures that aren't their own. It makes people think of themselves kind of, we call them oceanic descriptors, right? I'm not an American, I'm a member of the human race, right? I'm somebody who lives on Earth, right? It's kind of thinking more broadly about our group membership. So there's reason to believe that awe can help us build community as well.
Yeah. Very exciting. Well, I could definitely talk more with you about this, but I will respect your time. Thank you so much. And I'll follow up independently. Thanks, Craig.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.